The war between humans and the alien races had ended only 6 months ago. The peace was fragile. No one trusted anyone to prevent another war. The Galactic Union sent a representative to Earth's the most beautiful and skilled diplomat they had. Her name was Serenia, a Varelian woman known across the stars for her charm, her intelligence, and the way she could bend entire governments to her will without ever raising her voice. When her silver starship descended through the clouds, the people of Earth stopped to watch. The vessel was sleek, glowing with soft blue lights, like something out of a dream. Cameras flashed. Military vehicles lined the landing pad. Soldiers stood in perfect formation, and then the doors opened. Serenia stepped out slowly. Each movement graceful, deliberate. Her skin was smooth and violet, shimmering faintly under the sun. Her hair was like strands of liquid silver that fell. Over her shoulders, her eyes, deep amethyst pools that seemed to see through anyone they looked at. The humans watching her fell silent, their eyes drawn to her without even realizing it. She had been trained for this moment. Every step, every look, every word designed to make her seem harmless, inviting, and trustworthy. But Serenia wasn't here just to talk. She was here to control. From the corner of her eye, she noticed a man who wasn't watching her with the same dazed expression as the others. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing the black and silver uniform of an Earth Defense commander. His stance was solid, unshaken. His gaze was sharp, cold, almost challenging. Commander James Hale, she had read about him in the mission brief. A decorated war hero, brilliant strategist, dangerous. The council warned her, this man is not like the others. If he trusts you, the humans will follow. If he resists you, the peace may fail. Serenia smiled faintly and walked toward him. Commander. Hale, she said, her voice soft but carrying across the landing pad. It's an honor to meet the man who stopped the battle at Veganine. James didn't smile. Welcome to Earth, Diplomat, Serenia. Hope you enjoy your stay. His tone was polite but not warm. She extended her hand. He hesitated for a fraction of a second before shaking it. The moment their skin touched, something unexpected happened. A sharp electric sensation ran through Serenia's arm and into her chest. Her heart skipped. She drew in a quiet breath, covering her surprise with a smile. James released her hand quickly, as if he had felt it too. But his expression didn't change. A flicker of curiosity sparked inside her. She had shaken hands with hundreds of leaders, across dozens of worlds, but never had her body reacted like this. The welcoming ceremony began. The human president gave a speech about unity and cooperation. Serenia stood beside James on the stage, smiling for the cameras, speaking when needed, charming the audience with her calm confidence. But her mind kept drifting back to that strange spark from the handshake. When the ceremony ended, a reception followed inside a grand hall filled with officials, soldiers, and reporters. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead, and the smell of human food rich and warm filled the air. Serenia moved through the crowd with perfect elegance, speaking with ambassadors and ministers, but she found herself glancing toward James again and again. He wasn't mingling like the others. Instead, he stood near the edge of the room, observing everything, his eyes scanning for threats, always on guard, always ready. Her mission was to gain his trust, and for that, she needed to break through that armor of his. When she finally approached him again, she noticed the way his gaze softened, just slightly when he looked at her. Not enjoying the party? She asked, her voice teasing just enough. To invite conversation, I prefer quiet rooms, he replied. Serenia tilted her head. Then perhaps we have something in common. Before he could answer, the lights flickered. Once, twice. Then the entire hall went dark. Gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd. Outside, sirens wailed. James instantly stepped in front of her, his hand brushing her arm as if to shield her. The touch sent that strange spark through her again, even stronger this time. She didn't pull away. A voice crackled over the comm system. Attention. Power grid failure in Sector 4. Backup systems engaging. The lights returned a few moments later. But the brief darkness had left Serenia with a realization she hadn't expected when the room went black. She had felt safer with James standing between her and danger. That wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't here to feel safe. She was here to make him feel safe with her. As the reception continued, she noticed something else. James wasn't looking at her like a man caught under her spell. He was studying her, measuring her, and deep. Inside, Serenia felt an unfamiliar unease. The mission had just begun. And already, she wasn't the only one doing the charming. The next morning, Serenia stood by the wide windows of her assigned quarters in the Earth's embassy tower. The sun was rising over the city, casting gold light across the skyscrapers. She sipped the strange but pleasant drink the humans called coffee. Her mission plan lay on the Tabbola thin datapad with precise steps. 1. Gain the commander's trust. 2. Learn human defense strategies. 3. Influence future policy. It all seemed simple on paper. But nothing about Commander James Hale felt simple anymore. Later that day, the council's voice echoed in her earpiece. Remember, Serenia? Are dangerous, but they are also predictable. Smile, listen, let him feel important. This is not about you. It is about control. She closed the channel without replying. Their next meeting was at a private strategy room in the Earth Defense headquarters. The moment she walked in, James was already there, reviewing holographic maps of interstellar trade routes. You're early, she said. He looked up, his eyes briefly catching the morning light. So are you. They sat across from each other, the table between them glowing with shifting blue light. She began with light conversation, how her people's cities floated above the oceans, how they harvested energy from starlight. James listened, but she could see his mind constantly working, weighing her words. Then he spoke about the human colonies near the border worlds, places still recovering from war, where fear and hunger were daily struggles. His voice was steady, but there was something beneath it. Quiet anger at the way politics ignored those who suffered most. That surprised her. Most leaders she dealt with used numbers and statistics. He used faces, people, lives. The real shift came that evening. The embassy hosted a cultural exchange dinner, inlient music, human dishes, and polite speeches. Alenia was dressed in flowing Varelian silk, silver threads catching the light. Her presence drew every gaze in the room. She expected James to stay distant, like before. But when a loud argument broke out between two rival alien traders near her table, James stepped in before security could react. His voice was calm, but his stance told everyone he wouldn't let the situation get out of control. After it was over, Serenia found him outside on the balcony, looking out over the city lights. You stepped in fast, she said. I'd like to see threats near my guests, he replied simply. She gave a small smile. I'm not just a guest, Commander. I'm a diplomat. I can take care of myself. He turned his head toward her, his eyes holding hers for a moment longer than necessary. I don't doubt that. But it's my job to make sure I don't have to find out how dangerous you can be. Something shifted in her chest again. It wasn't the thrill of winning a diplomatic game. It was something warmer. The moment was broken when the balcony lights flickered again, just like the night before. The power didn't fail this time, but Serenia felt the same awareness of him beside her. She wondered if she stopped playing the game for just one night, what would happen? Back in her quarters, she replayed the day in her mind. This was supposed to be easy. Act charming. Let him trust her. Gather what she needed. But James didn't respond to charm the way others did. Didn't lean closer because of her beauty. He leaned closer because he was listening. For the first time in her career, Serenia feared the mission wasn't controlling him. It was changing her. The Varelian Council didn't like silence, and Serenia had been silent for too long. 3 days had passed since her last report. She told herself she was busy with diplomatic events, but in truth, she had been avoiding them. That morning, her personal device flashed with an incoming secure channel. The familiar voice of her handler spoke sharply. You've sent no intelligence updates. Is the commander resisting? Careful. He doesn't trust easily. Then make him trust.
Ow!
or make him think he does. You're trained for this, Serenia. Do not get distracted. The line went dead. She should have felt the usual sharp focus after such a reminder. Instead, she felt uneasy. Distracted wasn't the right word. It was something else. Something she didn't want to name. Later that afternoon, she found herself walking with James through one of Earth's older districts. It wasn't an official meeting he had suggested she see the real city, instead of just the shining embassy halls. The streets were alive with noise and scent food stalls steaming, children laughing, distant street music. People stared openly at Serenia, whispering to each other, not out of hatred, but out of fascination. She noticed James quietly guiding her through the crowd, sometimes stepping closer when it got too dense, his hand occasionally brushing her arm to make sure she didn't get separated. Every time it happened, her heartbeat betrayed her. When they stopped at a street vendor selling roasted bread and meat, James bought two without asking if she wanted one. He handed it to her with a casual, "Try it, best you'll ever have." Took a bite and was startled at how warm and flavorful it was. A laugh escaped her before she could stop it. James looked at her, almost smiling. "You laugh like you weren't sure you could." Her smile faded slightly, but she didn't answer. That night, her official duties called. She attended a closed negotiation session between human officials and a small alien delegation. Her role was to observe and report. But halfway through, one of the alien delegates insulted Earth's defensive capability. James tensed beside her, but before he could speak, Serenia stepped in. Her words, calm but edged with steel, cut through the insult and redirected the discussion. The room fell silent, not in anger, but in respect. When the meeting ended, James walked her to the exit. "You didn't have to defend us," he said. "Yes, I did," she replied simply. It was the right thing to do. It was only when she returned to her quarters that she realized she had just openly taken the human side in a matter where she was meant to remain neutral. Her mission required detachment. But tonight, she had chosen instinct over orders. She sat on her bed, the city lights flickering outside her window. She should have been writing a full report to the council. Instead, she stared at the blank screen, thinking about the way James had looked at her after the meeting, not as a diplomat, but as someone who had stood with him. The lines of her mission were beginning to blur, and once blurred, they were very hard to see again. The warning came without sound. No alarms, no sirens, only James's voice, low and urgent. "Stay behind me." One moment, Serenia was stepping out of the diplomatic tower after an evening session. The next, James's hand closed firmly around her wrist, pulling her into the shadow of a narrow side street. She didn't understand until she saw the glint of metal in the dark. 3 figures stood at the far end of the street, not human. Their armor shimmered faintly under the dim city lights, and their eyes glowed in unnatural green. Assassin, she recognized the style instantly. Varelian. James asked quietly. Serenia's voice was tight, not mine. Right. But someone paid them well. One of the assassins stepped forward. His voice was a hiss. "The diplomat leaves with us. The human stays." James didn't hesitate. Not going to happen. The assassins moved fast, but James was faster. In a blur, he shoved Serenia behind a heavy steel crate and drew a compact human sidearm. The street exploded into motion shouts, flashes of light, the metallic clang of weapons striking against walls. Serenia watched from cover, her heart pounding. Her training told her to escape, to run to safety and leave the fight to him. Something deeper, something she couldn't ignore, kept her frozen, his eyes locked on the man throwing himself into danger for her. An energy bolt flew past, striking the wall just inches from her face. The heat made her flinch. James's voice cut through the chaos. "Move, Serenia. Go." But instead of running, she reached for the small crystal blade hidden in her gown's sleeve. With swift, silent steps, she moved toward the nearest assassin. When he raised his weapon toward James, she lunged, slicing through his wrist guard, forcing him to drop the blaster. For a brief second, their eyes met James's and hers both, surprised she had joined the fight. It ended as quickly as it began. 2 attackers down, 1 fleeing into the night. James's breathing was heavy, his uniform scorched in 2 places. Serenia had a shallow cut on her arm, but she ignored it. "You're hurt," he said, reaching for her arm. "It's nothing," she replied. "You could have been killed." His eyes narrowed slightly. She hesitated, the truth heavy on her tongue, "Because I didn't want to leave you." For a long moment, neither spoke. The sounds of the city seemed far away. The street felt like its own world. Back at the safe house, James insisted on cleaning the cut on her arm himself. She sat quietly while he worked, her gaze fixed on his hands, strong, steady, careful. "You've done this before," she murmured. He gave a faint smile. "More times than I'd like." When he finished, their eyes met again. Something unspoken hung between them, something dangerous. Serenia knew this was the moment to pull back, to reassert the boundaries of her mission. Instead, she found herself leaning forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you, James." And in the quiet that followed, she realized she wasn't thanking him just for tonight. She was thanking him for something she couldn't yet name, something that had already begun to change everything. The days after the attack passed in a blur. Security around Serenia was doubled. Meetings were cut shorter. James was never more than a few steps away from her, on the surface. It looked like the mission was finally going in her favor after all. She now had the commander's constant attention. But inside, Serenia knew the truth. The mission was no longer the reason she stayed close to him. One morning, she woke with a strange heaviness in her body. Her skin felt warmer, her heart quicker. She assumed it was the stress from the attack. But when it didn't fade by midday, she decided to run a private medical scan in her quarters. The holographic display appeared in the air. Blue symbols scrolled down. She froze. The results were impossible. Her body was showing early signs of gestational shift. In human words, she was pregnant. Her breath caught, where people had tried for decades to create hybrid life with humans, always failing. And yet here it was. Here it was inside her. Her first thought was fear. The council would see this as a violation of trust, political disaster. They might claim the child as evidence and never let her see it again. Her second thought was of James. Would he see this as betrayal, an accident, or something worse? She paced the room for hours, trying to think. Her mission data pad still blinked, waiting for her daily report. All she sent was one short line. Situation changed. Cannot report full details. That evening, she joined James in the command lounge. He was reviewing security footage from the attack, his jaw tight. "You're distracted," he said without looking up. She hesitated. "So are you." When he finally turned to face her, his eyes were sharp, but there was something else there, softness he didn't show anyone else. "I'm thinking about who hired them. Someone wanted you gone, or wanted us apart," she murmured before she could stop herself. James studied her as if trying to read the hidden meaning. "Serenia, is there something you're not telling me?" The truth sat heavy on her tongue, ready to spill, but fear locked it inside. Not yet. Not until she knew what he would do. That night, alone in her room, she rested her hand gently over her stomach. The world outside was full of politics, betrayal, and danger. But in this quiet moment, she realized her mission had failed. She hadn't controlled the human. She had joined him, and now a part of him lived inside her. The message arrived at dawn. Single cold sentence on her secure channel. "Return to Varelian Prime immediately. Orders non-negotiable." Serenia read it twice, her stomach tightening. They knew. Maybe not everything, but enough to act. When she stepped into the corridor, James was already there, leaning against the wall like he'd been waiting. His eyes searched her face instantly. "Something's wrong." She tried to keep her voice even. "The council, they want me back." Urgently, his gaze sharpened. "Why?" He didn't say. James took a slow breath, like a man weighing choices. Then he pulled a small device from his pocket and activated it. A low hum filled the Iran anti-surveillance field. "I intercepted a transmission this morning," he said. "And it wasn't meant for you. It was between your council and a Varelian security unit already en route. They're not planning to evaluate you, Serenia. They're planning to terminate you and the child. The words hit her like a blade to the chest. You know, he didn't flinch. I've known since the day you changed your schedule and skipped 2 briefings. I just didn't know if you were going to tell me. Tears stung her eyes, not from fear, but from the sharp mix of relief and guilt. I wanted to. I just didn't know how. A distant rumble shook the building. Alarms blared. On the balcony, she could already see the streaks of incoming dropships breaking through the morning clouds. They're here, James said, his voice steady. And they're not here to talk. She stepped closer, her hand finding his without thinking. What will you do? What I have to, he replied. Within minutes, he had her moving through service tunnels beneath the embassy. The hum of machinery echoed around them, mixed with the distant thud of boots overhead. Serenia's mind raced. Every instinct told her to run for her ship, to try to escape alone. But she stayed beside him, every step fueled by the quiet certainty that without James, neither she nor the child would make it. When they reached the underground hangar, a single stealth transport waited, engines already warm. James's personal craft. You're taking me off-world? She asked. No, he said firmly. We're leaving together. The sound of armored footsteps grew louder. A voice called through the metal corridor. Commander Hale, step aside. Hand her over. This is Varelian jurisdiction. James's grip on his weapon tightened. Not today. As the first soldiers rounded the corner, Serenia realized there was no more mission, no more diplomacy, no more pretending. This was survival. And for the first time, peace. She wasn't afraid of what would come next, because she knew they would face it together. The corridor filled with the sharp hum of Varelian rifles charging. James stood between Serenia and the advancing soldiers, his stance unshakable. Last chance, Commander, the lead officer barked. Move aside. James's voice was calm, but it carried the weight of someone who had survived too many wars. She's under my protection. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. The officer's mandibles twitched a Varelian sign of anger. You're making a mistake. Human. No, James said, stepping back just enough to place a hand on Serenia's arm, guiding her toward the waiting craft. I'm making a choice. The first shot rang out, blue energy searing through the air. James shoved Serenia behind a metal crate and returned fire. The hangar echoed with blasts, sparks flying from walls and consoles. Serenia's training screamed at her to grab a weapon and fight. But another voice inside her, quieter, stronger, told her to trust him. Trust the human who had already risked everything for her. When 2 soldiers flanked from the side, she acted on instinct, using her crystal blade to disable their rifles. James finished the rest with sharp, efficient bursts. Within seconds, the hangar fell silent except for the low thrum of the transport's engines. They ran. The ramp closed behind them as James launched the craft into the sky. Through the cockpit glass, Serenia watched the embassy tower shrink beneath them, the city glowing under the early morning light. Where will we go? She asked, breathless. Somewhere. They can't follow, James replied. Somewhere our child can be safe. She turned to look at him fully. His face was focused on the stars ahead, but his hand reached for hers without hesitation. She held it tightly. Hours later, deep in the black of space, the autopilot hummed quietly. James finally relaxed in his seat, though his eyes still scanned the distant void. Serenia leaned back, one hand over her stomach. When I came here, my mission was to make you trust me, so I could control you. He gave her a small, knowing smile. I figured, but something happened, she continued, her voice soft. Oh. You didn't fall under my spell, I fell under yours. For the first time, James laughed, not the polite, guarded laugh she had heard before, but something real. Guess that makes us both terrible at our jobs. As the stars stretched into long lines and the ship jumped to hyperspace, Serena realized her future was no longer written by the Varelian Council or the Earth Defense Command. Her future was here in the quiet space between heartbeats beside the human who had chosen her over the galaxy, and as their hands stayed locked together, she knew she had made her choice too. She was choosing humanity,